Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of The Blaze Bell Show. This week's guest is Kate, owner of Bliss Yoga Alaska. We dive into mindset, presence, and the importance of this now moment. Kate also guides us through a beautiful meditation at the end of this episode. I am obsessed with Kate's Instagram page, so go check that out at blissyoga.kate. Now let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm here today with Kate of Bliss Yoga. She is a yoga teacher and an embodiment coach, and of course, so much more. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. This was an exciting opportunity to connect with you and to talk to everybody today. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, embodiment coach, that really stood out to me when I saw that as one of your things. And first of all, I love that life coaching is becoming so more mainstream. People are starting to understand it better. The first life coach I ever met was our mutual friend Solveig, and it was many years ago now, and I had no idea what a life coach was. And I remember after meeting her, going home, looking on her website, and I'm like, this sounds amazing. This is a thing, like your own personal, guru, cheerleader, giver of resources. So for me, I was about a year into my recovery from addiction, and I had shed so many layers going through that process, and I was really ready for the next step. So I was like, this, and it just seemed like such a perfect fit for that, where it wasn't therapy, where I was going to be reliving my childhood once a week and then walking away. It was very goal oriented. It was very like present moment. And it was just amazing. So I love that more and more people are having the courage to take on that mentorship role. And so thank you for doing that. First of all, I think it's great.
You're very welcome. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I meet quite a few people who are interested in doing it, and they're like, well, there's already enough people doing that. Which, and you could say that in any field and be wrong every time, you know?
Yeah. No, I think you're so right, because it happens a lot in the yoga field as well. They're like, there's so many people teaching yoga. There's so many yoga teachers. Like, what makes me different? And I think that like the false narrative is that all we are is like that thing. Like once I get a yoga teacher certification, all I am is a yoga teacher. Once I become a life coach, it's only through that lens, but it's really all of our experiences, all that we are as people, that kind of knits together into this uniqueness that is us, right? So there's only one me, there's only one you, there's only one soul day.
Yeah.
And that's going to resonate on a different frequency with different people based on what it is that we're bringing to the table, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're each looking at the world through our own very specific lens. And it could be that I meet you and Solveig in the same day and you both have beautiful offerings. And I go, well, Solveig just looks like this girl who did me wrong in seventh grade, or like, whatever it is. Like this cousin who I just hate that's been picking on me my whole life has zero to do with her, but I would rather work with you because of that. You know what I mean? Like there's so many little things us humans are just like, so I love just finding someone you resonate with who, yeah.
And many of those things we're like not even aware of, right? Like
Oh yeah.
we just intuitively sense that that's like the right person for me, or we intuitively have the sense of like, maybe not.
Yeah.
It might not be as glaringly obvious as like the bully in seventh grade, although I love that example. That was awesome.
Well, yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's like that person just rubs me the wrong way. Oh, because of a conversation you had, because of something they did. Well, no, I've never actually spoken to them. It's like,
Right. I don't know why, but they're just not the right one for me. Yeah, absolutely.
and I'm totally giving them focusing on the negative spin, but it's also for me, I've learned that like finding someone who is me a few steps ahead and working with people who are me a couple steps behind. And behind isn't even the right word, but in the timeline of healing and attracting those people and being attracted to those people always seems to be the ideal fit and the ideal experience. So,
No, that totally makes sense, because I find my, I'm sorry, I missed that question. What was that?
I was just gonna say, have you experienced that too? Like what?
Yes, yes. So I always say that I'm like a recovering A-type personality. And I think that people like high achievers who are maybe inherently perfectionists, they enjoy working with me if they're ready to change that mindset a little bit, because I know what it feels like to be that intense, you know? And but what's interesting, so that I also have worked with Solvay, and I'm like, Solvay to me is like what I would like to evolve into, I suppose, but I don't know that I don't see her as like that A-type intense person. I don't know that that's ever been her. You know what I'm saying? Like she's just luminous in every single way. But I think that's why I was attracted to her, because it was almost as if she was like the opposite of the intensities that I was trying to soften, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So I tried in yoga, we talk a lot about cultivating not necessarily cultivating the opposite, but balancing through opposites. So if you're really cold, go to hot yoga, right? Like if you're a really intense person, maybe you want to go to a yin yoga class or do meditation. But we often are like attracts like. So we don't always want to do that. So in terms of coaching, I think that I attract people who see, okay, Kate has been an intense person. She knows what it feels like to be in my shoes, and I might be able to learn from her. So that's like attracting like, but maybe further down the path, as you had put it. But then for me, I have worked with both types of coaches, like a coach like Solvay and then a coach that might have been more like my personality down further down the path. And oddly enough, it's actually like almost triggers me to revert into more intensity. Like I want to achieve to please that coach. It's so interesting how that works.
Mhm.
That's just my experience though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, I think that comes back to how great is it that we have options, that there are
Yes.
people brave enough to say, I want to work towards learning how I can best mentor another person on this crazy journey of life. So I think that
Absolutely.
that's really cool. Yeah, and I feel like too, I need different types of mentors for different parts of my life. Whether it's
Mhm.
right now different parts, like I have this amazing coach and we do tons of hypnotherapy and tapping and like going so down and dirty like to the absolute core of me and it's been incredible. But then I also have this other like business mentor for something completely different and she has a different
Mhm.
energy and so I
Mhm.
think at different times there are different things that we need if we're just
Oh, you're totally right. That makes a lot of sense, because it's funny. I've worked with the more intense coach at the same time as working with Solvay, because I was like, they're gonna balance each other and speak to like both sides of what I need. So I love that you pointed that out. You're absolutely right.
so let's talk about embodiment. So do you do the word of the year? Do you ever do that? Like what's your like
Oh yes.
theme of the year? So I do that most years and this year mine was embody and integrate. And so
Mm.
I love that you're an embodiment coach and I'd really like to hear what that means to you. What does embodiment mean to you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I love doing the words for the year. Mine is wild prosperity.
Ooh,
So
fun.
it's a fun one, but I love that embody and integrate, because I think that they really go hand in hand. You know what I find when I'm working with people, and what has also been true for myself, is existing so much in our heads, like so much in our thoughts, so much in our analysis of an experience or whatever it is that's happening in our lives. And there's so much innate wisdom in our bodies. And if we only exist in our mind, if and that's where like society says there's a lot of value there, right? We kind of miss this wisdom and these pieces that the body has maybe been telling us for a long time. Because it starts there. I mean, think about like what we talked about earlier, when you decide who you want to work with, there's kind of this gut instinct that happens. And if we don't trust that or even listen to that, then we're just in the mind space of trying to decide, trying to analyze, and trying to see, like, is that person for me or not for me? Is this experience for me or not for me? So as an embodiment coach, I really try to, when we have a conversation, my clients and I try to direct the conversation into like, what does that feel like in your body? Where does it feel like that in your body? What are the qualities of that sensation or that feeling? And that can often lead to really profound aha moments. And, it's not even something, it's not like I'm giving them the answer. They're turning inward to their own visceral experience to give them that answer that may or may not have words shaped around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I think it helps so much to have someone guide you through that process if you are not used to listening to your body. And
Mhm.
that's definitely been a big part of my journey is really checking in. And my gut, I mean, gut feelings, like it's been very literal for me where, I mean, certain situations, people, places, I will get an instant, even a text message, like with an opportunity for Blaze, and I'll immediately be like, oh, like my stomach hurts
Oh,
really bad. And
yeah.
I've I've had to learn to follow that instinct and to not judge the person on the other end of it as well. Because I
Mhm.
originally thought, oh my God, that person must be just pure evil. My body is like freaking out, and I've learned that it's not that. It's just a person or a situation that's not in alignment with where I'm at right now, which could change.
Exactly.
Like we might be BFFs in 3 years or something, but right now, like that opportunity is not for me. That friendship or romantic, situation is not for me. And trusting it, because you're so right. As soon as we let our brain take over, oh,
Mhm.
it's tough
Uh-huh.
because a lot of us are so conditioned to be nice, especially us ladies. Be nice, and all of a sudden your brain is like, well, maybe it's okay. Well, don't be rude. Well, da 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 da. And it turns into this exhausting chatter.
Well, right. Then we start judging our own intuition, our own wisdom. We're like, I have this feeling. I don't think I'm supposed to have that feeling based on my conditioning. So I'm going to judge it. I'm going to learn to not trust it and not listen to it. And I think at a lot of times we end up numbing it, right? However it is that you choose to numb those body feelings, um, we numb it. And that's not to say that that's not always I hesitate to say the word skillful, but take someone who's experienced a lot of physical trauma. It can be really challenging for them to want to drop into their body, for them to want to actually listen to their body. And so numbing has been a way of keeping them safe. So I don't want to like discount someone who has needed that, has needed to not connect with their body. But I think there are ways, and I'm not a trauma yoga specialist, just so you know, but I know that there are great people who do work with that. So then there are places that people can go to learn how to safely reconnect with their body. But for most of the people that I work with, they can safely connect with their body, and they just need to learn how and learn how to listen, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so this is more personal, but if I've been through it, I'm sure someone else has. Us humans aren't as different as we think we are. Um, Yoga. So I have not done a lot of yoga in my life, and I've been more of the like kickboxing type, just if I'm gonna move my body, I feel like a very aggressive energy for I'm sure a
Mhm,
variety of reasons. Some
mhm,
positive, some possibly more negative. But with yoga, I have this fear that I'll start crying. So I've had sexual trauma in the past. I've
mhm,
had some abuse, and I can picture right now where my was like spirit disconnected from my body during that experience.
mhm,
And
mhm.
this was a very long time ago, and I was not going to talk about this in our conversation, but that's okay. Um, Not that I'm not open about it, but I don't want to cry right now. Anyway, so there was definitely that physical disconnect and a big, series of like feeling betrayed in my body, feeling disgusted by my body because what had happened, and all of these things that are very common for anyone who's been through sexual assault. And
Mhm,
so you're exactly right, like the numbing and the disassociation and just
mhm.
not being connected. And that's a big part of my embody and integrate for this
Yeah.
year because I've had this awesome healing journey, and I've done a lot of stuff like up here, and I'm super connected to my guides, and I have all this spiritual and mental, awareness that is so magical, but I still feel a little disconnected to my physical being. And
Mhm,
so, say we're doing yoga together. and I just start crying and bawling, and I'm like having some sort of situation. Even though you're not a trauma informed teacher, like I'm sure you hold space for people. And does this ever happen?
Oh, and it's okay. So I'm only like giggling a little bit because it probably happens in almost every class that I teach. I feel like someone cries.
Oh,
And maybe not like an intense sobbing, but there is definitely quite an intense emotional reaction from many people. And it's not my intention. I'm not trying. I'm not trying to make someone cry. But if they feel a release in their body, it is often connected to a release in emotionally for them. And absolutely, do I hold space for that? Absolutely. It doesn't always mean that I'm thinking about this more in a teaching classes in a studio space. Now I teach classes only on Zoom. So I'm not necessarily going to be as aware of someone if that happens, right? Like if they're not on camera, their camera's turned off. But in a class, it depends on the person. I'm not going to stop the class. I'm not going to make them feel weird about it, but I may, just stand near them. If I know them, I may reach out and like offer them, like they could touch me if they wanted to. I may talk to them after class. Or I might just say out loud to everyone, it's okay. Like whatever is coming up for you right now is okay. You don't have to push it away. You also don't have to invite it in. Whatever shows up, let it show up. Whatever goes, let it go. And trust that there's a reason for that is probably what I would do.
very cool. Okay, not just me then. Okay.
No, no, not just you at all.
Yeah. How's it been going teaching on Zoom? What's that like?
It's so weird how much I like it because I always had such a resistance to. I've never really been a techie person. I've never really like I'm historically very camera shy, so it's kind of hilarious now that like everything I do is through video or recordings. I really like it, and I had no choice when it happened. So I was in the middle of teaching a yoga teacher training when the pandemic hit, and we had like 3 months left for them to graduate, and the choice would have been to just cancel the training, which would have been awful, or postpone quite a bit further in the year, which would also been hard, or transition to Zoom. And I had taken a lot of Zoom trainings through other yoga teachers and Ayurvedic specialists, and so I was familiar with the format. I was like, I know there's a way to do this and there's a way to do it well. So I started learning how to do it better and just practiced. And I really, really like it actually.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I guess it's time for me to take a yoga Zoom class. It's happening. It's happening.
So one of the things that I liked so much about being able to teach on Zoom was that I could change the format, right? Like people like to go to yoga because of community. It's not just the teacher. They like to feel invited into a space. They like to feel invited into that like space. Like you mentioned space holding earlier, right? Like there's sort of this vibe that happens when you go to yoga. It's not, I don't know, you got like somebody's burning sage and there's essential oils and the lights are low and there's good music and you see your friends and there's sort of just this thing that happens. So, like, how do you recreate that space online? And I decided that for my classes, I was going to invite the first 15, 20 minutes into a curated conversation. So, kind of just like this, I'm like, I'm going to pick a word. This is going to be our theme. I'm going to ask you all some questions. And if you decide to share, great. And if not, I guess I'll just be talking. But
Mhm.
it ended up being this really beautiful way to feel connected to community even on the online space. And all of the women who've been coming, like it's the most consistent class I've ever had with the most consistent students I've ever had. Like it actually blows my mind, but it's just awesome. Like we drop in, we have a great conversation, I lead everyone through some really gentle accessible yoga, and we're done. It's every week on Wednesday mornings, and if you wanted to come to that one, I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I really appreciate like that you are willing to learn some new things. That's been a big thing this past year. And then also make it your own. Think about ways to make people get more connected. And I think connection is what we're just so sorely missing during this time. And so that sounds really beautiful. It really
Thank
does.
you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So before we end, I decided to start doing this podcast because of the pandemic, because of how stressful it's been. And, and I know for me, I have a box full of tools. Like I have so many healing tools in my back pocket, and I was struggling, and still am off and on. So I kept thinking, like, what about the people that don't have any tools? Because I also remember being that person and just feeling so absolutely lost. And so that's why I wanted to bring all of these amazing healers like yourself that have something to offer and have taken that courageous step to share that with the rest of us. So, is there something that you would say to somebody who's struggling right now just with the uncertainty in the world? I thought we were really going to be out of this pandemic by now, but it just seems to be one weird thing after another, kind of nationwide and globally. And um, so, what would you offer to someone who's just like, I'm nervous. My anxiety is a lot higher than it's ever been. I'm uncertain. I don't have control. That was a big thing.
Mhm.
Like, I
Yeah.
thought I had control over XYZ. Apparently not. And that's really startling. So,
I think I think I would direct people to focus on the things that are more constant in their lives. And what's interesting is as much as there is focus on changing the body, the body, our physical form is something that doesn't actually change that much. That is something that can be an anchor for us. So, and maybe their body isn't the place they want to focus, but is there like a relationship that is a constant in your life, a family member or a friend? Is there a park that you like to visit? Do you know what I mean? Something that is concrete, that is largely the same, even through the pandemic, is a place to kind of rest, I think. And in yoga, the idea is that we have many layers of ourself. And the first layer is the body. And that is the layer that experiences the least amount of change, which I think makes sense, right? We're always going to have, well, not always, but we're pretty sure we're going to have two legs and two arms and two eyes, right? Like this form is going to stay pretty similar, but our emotions change all the time. Our thoughts change all the time, right? The things that we know, the things that we learn, the world around us as we experience it shifts and changes all the time. So being able to rest our mind on something that is more still can really be just soothing to that anxiety. It doesn't even have to like fix it. It's just a place to rest, I think, is
mm,
important to have.
yeah, thank you. I really like that. A place for rest. And I feel like with the internet and we're just so bombarded these days anyway with information, and some of it's a lot of fun and some of it's extremely stressful, and it just is so constant that rest, we still have that caveman brain going on that wants to just stare off into space for a while every day and let things like fully integrate and let emotions move through our body before we immediately reach for the latest TikTok, whatever, you know what I mean? And it's just we're not giving ourselves that break, that moment to just breathe. So
Yeah,
yeah.
this space to just be is really hard, and we talk about our mindset. We, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, and we mentioned like all of these things that happen to us. Like, is there really space to let it be? And I hear so many people who like they don't want to meditate, they don't want to go to yoga because they're scared to just be with themselves, right? They're like, I can't just be by myself. I can't just be in the quiet, that they're fearful of that experience. Like you were saying, you were fearful of maybe crying, but other people, they're fearful of the quiet, you know. And
Yeah.
I get that. It is really really hard to do, but it does take and it's a skill that you can cultivate. It's a practice that you can have. And I don't think anyone is just immediately good at that personally.
Yeah. And I like that you said practice, because I've realized that with meditation and with mindfulness techniques, so much of it
Mhm.
is quite simple. But if you're not practicing, you won't remember to do it in a moment of stress and anxiety. So, yeah, I love that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
meditation, I saw that you have some guided meditations, and I
Mhm.
was hoping if that you would maybe end this podcast today with guiding us through a meditation to help us do just that, to rest, to drop in, to just be for a moment.
I love that idea. And off the top of my head, I'm thinking about I often end yoga class with kind of a guided experience of also of integrating to the body. So letting yourself be with the body in a way that is not too intimidating. So I'll tell you that right now. To just be with the experience of like, what does it feel like to have a body, to have hands, to have feet, and then you start dropping into the deeper layers of yourself. Does that sound okay if I guide through the physical body as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm happy to dive in. So wherever you're at, if it's whether you're standing or you're sitting or you're walking, if you can soften your eyes. Now, if you're sitting or laying down, if it feels okay to close your eyes, go ahead and do that. If you're driving a car or if you're walking, definitely don't do that, please. But just feel softer through your gaze, as if your eyeballs were kind of sinking into your head a little bit and you had more of a peripheral view. And then see if you can just be even more comfortable. So that means you need to wiggle a little bit, or if you have an itch that you need to scratch or adjust your clothing, that is okay. I think we often think that we have to be completely still for meditation. And if there's anything that's uncomfortable, I want you to address that. And then just take a few deep breaths, whatever those breaths look like for you. They don't have to be anything special. You're just breathing in and out, in and out. One more. And then let your attention rest with your hands. What does it feel like to have hands? Now, you may not have a thought around that, and that's okay. Because I would rather you feel what it feels like to have hands without connecting a judgment or a descriptor to it. What is the experience of having hands? And what is the experience that your hands are having? Your hands are connected to your body. You may notice the texture of your clothes, the warmth of your body. You may feel the temperature of the air on the backs of your hands. Or if there's any breeze, you may notice that experience as well. Are your hands open? Are they closed? Now bring your attention to your breath. The visceral, physical feeling of inhales and exhales. Where in your body do you feel your breath the most? Maybe you feel it in your nose or your throat, maybe in your chest, or possibly way down deep in your abdomen. And when you exhale, do areas of your body respond? Is there a softening, a relaxing? And if there's no sensation, if there's just kind of a numbness or a disconnect, that's okay, because that's information too. Now connect your breath with the experience of your hands. Imagine that you're directing your inhales all the way down your arms and through your fingertips, as if your hands could take up more space on your inhale. And let your exhales travel back to the center of you, to the origination point of your breath. And as you do, your hands kind of relax and soften. Now stay with this, inhaling down your arms, letting your hands connect to that feeling of expansion. And exhaling back to the center of you, letting your hands release and relax. Just a few more breaths, meditating on the sensation of opening and closing. Neither is good or bad, they just are. Your body and your breath are designed to move through both experiences. What does it feel like to have a body? What does it feel like to be you? A person with a body that is breathing and being right here. And take just 2 more breaths like that. 2 more unrushed breaths to be in this moment. And after that second exhale, if your eyes were closed, you can blink them open. I hope that felt good in your body and allowed you to be present and brought you a little more peace today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was so nice. I think we need more of
Thank you.
those moments. One of the big things I've realized is that you don't need a 20-minute, 60-minute, meditation practice in order to connect back to yourself. Or for me, I think about recalibrate. And
Mm,
I used to have this belief that if I messed up, whatever that meant at that period of my life, then my day was ruined. The whole day's ruined. I think of that with food a lot. People that are like dieting. It's like, well, I ate a donut, day's ruined. Let's just go get hamburgers or whatever, But
yeah.
I've felt that in a lot of areas. And now, a few years ago, I read a book called You Have 4 Minutes to Heal Your Life. And that was so incredibly helpful because, and it was written by this woman who has 5 kids and she's a meditation teacher. And she's like, no, I don't wake up in the morning and have a peaceful 30-minute practice. Like, that's not a reality. And it's not going to be for a very long time. And
Mm-mm.
and that was so good for me because I at the time had 2 toddlers and now I've got 2 kids and they're old enough now that I told them I'm gonna go do a podcast interview. Leave me alone for an hour. And they're like, okay. But that
Right.
wasn't how it was before. And I would get so frustrated because I realized I was following all these leaders who had no children. And what they were suggesting was very difficult for me to figure out how to put into my life. And so I now think about just a moment to moment recalibration
Mm,
when I start to feel wonky or something comes up, and I can go in the bathroom and cry if I need to. I do a ton of tapping, emotional
yeah.
freedom technique. It's amazing, like energy work, and doing just short meditations to just reconnect and calm down and remember that right here, right now, everything is good. And I think so much of our worry is from bad memories from the past or worrying about what's going to happen in the future, and none of that is real. Like, just this is. So that
Yeah,
practice. Mhm.
I love what you just said about like moment by moment recalibration. I love that word recalibrate. And you're absolutely right. Like moment by moment is really what we have. We think about self-care, we think about our thoughts, we think about these changes that we want to make to our life. It really is in the moment. It's in this moment that we have. I have a teacher who always would say take 3 deep breaths. Like if don't have time for anything else, you can take 3 deep breaths, and that's going to be that opportunity to recalibrate, to reset, to choose again. And that was a powerful practice for me because it's funny, most of my Instagram followers are like, you're so patient. I'm like, not inherently. It's
Yeah.
always been a struggle for me to be patient, but so sitting down for a 30-minute meditation practice when I first started, I was like, fuck that. Like not going to do, can't even think about it. But 3 deep breaths, I can do that. 5-minute meditation, I can do that. And then it, it grew and it evolved, but I still come back to that. I still use the 3 deep breaths and that moment by moment recalibration that, as you said, and it's so helpful.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think time, what is time anyway? I feel like through 2020, a lot of us started feeling like time was moving so differently. And I don't know if you had that experience, but I've even had it
Oh
just
yeah.
recently where I'm like, that was yesterday? It feels like it's been a week. Or the opposite, where you're just like, things are just speeding. And so, yeah, I think that kind of expanding time and just focusing on moment to moment. So that's what we've got.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah, time is weird. Time is so odd because it's so much about your perception, And it does feel I often feel like time is moving very quickly for me, but and that's why it's helpful for me to slow it down because otherwise I get caught up in this like feeling like there's not enough time. And that's also a false narrative, right? Like there's lots of time. There's lots of time. And if I actually embrace the slowness, if I embrace that this moment, these 3 deep breaths, if I do it at the beginning of my day, I feel like my whole day somehow got longer. My in a good way. My whole day just expanded and it's really cool. We can just be these like, I don't know, these time ninjas and I love it.
time ninjas. Okay, I like that. I like that. Awesome. Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing a lot of your wisdom and your practices. And I will definitely make sure everyone knows where to find you. I really enjoy your Instagram page, it's one of my favorites. So thank
Oh,
you
thank
for what you
you.
put into that. Yeah. And can you just tell us real quick, and I will link it, but your Instagram handle and then if you have a website, what's it called?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is blissyoga.kate. And then my website is blissyogaak.com, like AK for Alaska, blissyogaak.com. So you can pretty much find all of my offerings either on Instagram or on my website. They're both pretty updated.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I can't wait to connect again soon.
Yeah, you as well. Liz. Thank you. This was amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time and just creating a place for people to come and heal. Yeah, that's really what I feel like you've done, and I think it's beautiful.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. And I want to give a local business shout out to Hydrate Alaska. Hydrate Alaska is one of my all-time favorite places. They do vitamin infusions. So you can do an IV, you could also do an injection, and they also have pills and sublingual supplements. So if you want to get your health right, boost your immune system, and have a good time, baby, then go check out Hydrate Alaska. My favorites are the vitamin D, the vitamin C, the beauty bag, and also a big favorite is the NAD+. Go on their website, hydratealaska.com, learn all about what they offer, and get your immune system to where it wants to be.